Welcoming back an old friend, explore a number of topics with us. This week, I welcome back the amazing Rich Oxenham of Hatchlings Games to talk about the upcoming solo journaling game, Dowser, projects on the horizon, and just catch up. Between mystical dragons and cryptids, come on a journey with us this week on Scheduled for Launch. Welcome to Schedule for Launch, a podcast to discover the projects that you may have missed. This week, I'm really excited to be rejoined by somebody who I haven't really spoken to in, what was it, Rich, 2 years now we were looking at?
Just over, wasn't it? Yeah, just over 2 years.
It's a little bit close to that. Oh my gosh. Hey, welcome back, Rich from Hatchling Games. I am absolutely stoked to have you here this week.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be back. It's been a long time. We should have rescheduled it
has been
a long time ago, actually. But, it's not a bad time though. We've got a few new projects on released and launching and funding and all this sort of thing. So it's quite a nice time to come back on.
Yeah, well, I think we had looked at doing something for Inspirisles when that was about to go fun, but then life happened and we got busy and it came and went, and now I'm just excited to have you back on the show. It's one of my favorite conversations I had on the entire podcast.
Thank you. That's really kind. Yeah, the team management on Inspirisles was a whole different ball game to Inspirisles.
Yeah.
I had about 30, 35 people on the team at that point.
Did it end up growing to be that big?
Yeah, just because we had 20 writers on the through stretch goals, and obviously it hit a number of stretch goals. So it was like all the family friendly peers came on board, and all the people from the Discord, and it was so awesome. But it took a lot of logistical sort of like management.
Yeah, it was busy, that's for sure. But Rich, for people who don't know who you are, can you give a little introduction on who you are and what you're doing in the space?
Yes, my name's Rich. I'm Hatchling DM most social media and platforms and websites and things. We are Hatchlings Games. We're a family-friendly tabletop RPG publisher. We're best known for like a groundbreaking game that teaches British and American Sign Language called Inspirisles. That's basically us in a nutshell. We've got a number of projects coming out soon and funding at the moment, and we're excited to be continuing this journey.
I loved how much you downplayed how good those games were too. You're like, oh yeah, we had 35 writers on Inspirisles. Inspirisles is easily one of the best tabletop role-playing games I've ever had the joy of playing. We're utilizing it with some of the students at my school. Just, you've done such a good job and like so much for the space, and it's amazing. So like, I think you should make sure that you're giving yourself proper credit there, Rich.
Thanks, that's kind. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to hear about it being used in education. It was one of the dreams. It was the reason for starting it in some ways, and to have that come to fruition is kind of really exciting, to be honest. Like I said to you before we went on air, we're developing a teaching pack now for the core game, so that educators unaccustomed with role playing games can kind of jump on board a lot quicker, and also add their own kind of lesson elements to it. So that's incredibly exciting.
I'm excited to see more about that too. I'll probably pick it up myself because I think that could be really useful with some of the kiddos that I work with.
Well, intended to put it on the website, so it should be free for download. Anyone who owns the PDF.
Oh, sweet.
It's just an easy way to reach people, isn't it?
Well, we're here to talk about a newer game that you're currently funding as we speak, and as this episode goes live, we'll be funding for, I think, about another 2 weeks. And that's Dowser. This is a super cool game. It uses Carta by Peach Garden Games. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But could you tell us a little bit about Dowser and how that came to be?
Yeah, so my background's in creative writing, and I never quite took to the idea of being a novelist, I suppose. I tried it for a long time. I did sort of modules in writing for young people, and that's kind of why I love making family-friendly games or all ages experiences. And obviously, with all the production of Inspirisles, and I went straight into Overalls. I was looking elsewhere in the community and in the industry about different systems, and I didn't realize that a journaling game existed until I saw something on is it called 1,000-Year-Old Vampire?
Yeah, I
Are
think
you
that's it.
familiar with that? Yeah,
I've heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, and I thought it was such a brilliant concept, and I picked up the digital copy of it, which is annoying because I'd rather have the physical version because it's meant to
Yeah.
be one of the most beautiful kind of produced games ever, basically.
Mhm.
But I'll intend to get that at some point. But basically, I looked through the system. I had a little go of it. I had a little go of that kind of playing that vampire over eons of time and your eventual death. And I thought this is the closest thing you can get to a creative writing kind of workshop. Um, and I thought I've got passion for creative writing. I want to encourage writing in other people, and I don't want to be a novelist. I want to work with other people to make something. So like it's absolutely sweet spot. It's kind of the idea of a journaling game. Um, and then I discovered Peach Garden made these cards. So basically, I looked through hundreds, maybe dozens to hundreds of journaling games on
Yeah.
itch.io, and eventually came across Carter and played a couple of their games and looked at downloaded some of their examples.
Mhm.
And it's just such a streamlined, beautiful system for exploration games.
Now, I'm personally not super familiar with Carta. Could you kind of explain how that works and how it works in Dragon Dowser?
Yeah. So the principle is you have four aces, and you have obviously four different suits in a normal deck of playing cards. And the principle is that with Drag Dowser, especially if I give that as an example, each suit represents a different theme. So in Dragon Dowser, we've got like the environment is one of the suits, and then we've got community, and then we've got machines, which are kind of like these old, buried kind of like robots, essentially, like in Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind. And then you've got like conflict, um, and mysteries is the fourth one. So you have a spread of cards, and you pick an ace at the beginning. In Dragon Dowser's case, the ace represents a different type of dragon egg, and this is kind of
Mm,
your purpose of the game is that you're meant to go across this spread of cards, which represents the kind of setting of Prelar, which is Dragon Dowser's setting. And
okay.
each time you reveal a card that you land on or choose, you obviously turn it over, and it reveals the theme, the resource effect. So if it's a 2, you lose tons of resources. If it's a king, you gain tons of resources. And then it has 2 prompts per card. So it has a question and a kind of like descriptive element. And
Okay.
then by the end of it, once you've gone across the deck, you hopefully will find the ace you chose at the beginning and therefore rescue the dragon egg. But if you don't, obviously you have to start the dowsing again from a different sanctuary, which there's 2, which are represented by the jokers of the pack. So these 2 jokers are on the outside of this card spread. That's kind of your sanctuary, your hub area, and
Mm,
um, and yeah, you're meant to make it across while keeping your resources balanced, and creating a completely unique creative writing journey, depending on what prompts you arrive at. That's kind of the principle behind it. It's very simple, it's very streamlined, but it really, really taps into creative writing learning, which is the thing I wanted most from the system.
I think something that I always pull away from the games that Hatchling creates is that, and like this is something from you, and we talked about this in the past. There's always something to be learned from what you're doing, and this one's a little bit more direct. It's the I shouldn't say direct. It's you're doing that creative scenario as you go through, and
Mm.
I just think it's fantastic. I think Carta really lends itself to what you're trying to get at here. A question that I do have though is in this game, I'm guessing that you can use your standard deck, or is there like a Dragon Dowser deck of cards that you can buy, and it has like everything right there on the card?
Yep, I mean with Kickstarter at the moment, we're having we made a complete custom deck with unique dragons for the sort of like royal cards, and then these 4 beautiful illustrations to represent the different themes for the numbered cards, and then the sanctuary is illustrated as well. And it just looks absolutely stunning. I can't believe how well it's come out. I mean, Ashley did most of the art, and she's an incredible artist. Actually did all the sign language elements for Inspirisles as well.
Yeah. So Ashley's done all the art there.
Yeah, she did a lot of the principal art, and she was also the sort of art lead. That's Willow's Quest on Twitter and social media. Just brilliant dragon artist, just a brilliant artist in general, and also working on Cryptic Creeks, and obviously Underisles when that eventually comes out in a couple of years.
There's another one too. I'm excited about that. I was gonna really compliment the dragon designs in this, because you have these fantastical European dragon designs that are just so on display in the Kickstarter, and they're stunning. I love the art for this game so much. It's gorgeous. I mean, well, I feel like you and the team always make sure that there's a lot of love put into the art. It almost evokes its own story.
It's really important to me. I've also got an art background. I think maybe that's part of it. And I'm also a visual design, I would say, is the term. So I like, whenever I make something, I always think of it visually. Like, I can probably, wake up one morning, I'll have a complete kind of game in mind, but it's not written down. It's just all playing out in my head visually. So like, if someone said, if I think of the different elements of chapters of a role playing game, I can sort of picture the kind of. I can't ever obviously replicate what I'm thinking, but that's why I've got brilliant artists on board. So I can go, oh, I've got this idea for like a boat on the river, and there's going to be some cryptid sort of like chasing after them, and it's going to be quite a joyous scene, and it can have some spray on the water. All these different elements, even to the point where it's like, I want this angle, or I kind of want this perspective, or I want these dimensions, and I said to someone the other day, like, I've worked with someone like Lucille Noir for like 3 years now on all the projects, and I haven't once, amongst probably close to 100 pieces of art, I haven't once said to her, "Can you make a revision?" Not once.
Really?
Not as one single element of any piece.
That's incredibly impressive.
That's incredibly. That's someone who knows my kind of like perspective really well on things, on visual elements. Yeah, and also the Cryptic Creeks characters, the game that's kickstarting in September.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Cryptic Creek too.
Yeah,
I really like. It's very different from other games by Hatchlings, so
let's go into that. It is a little bit of a diversion. Yeah, so it's basically like my childhood, really, in a nutshell. Obviously not like communicating with huge cryptids, but like I did have that imagination. I did have that imagination, to be fair.
Well, yeah.
But basically, it's because I grew up on kind of riverside, and we lived on a boatyard for a number of years, for about 5 or 6 years. My parents were like renovating like a folk boat, a 25-foot yacht, and they hardly ever sailed it, but they just enjoyed kind of like taking this husk and kind of trying to update it and make it seaworthy. And at the same time, I was sailing dinghies at a boat club, and that was amazing fun. Fishing and all sorts of things, swimming in the river, and so it's kind of like harking back to that, and I kind of want to capture some of that nostalgia. And I always think that designers should make something that they feel passionate about, but what they want to play as well.
Yeah,
and for Cryptic Creeks, this is very much the case. It's kind of like I'm not making this for anyone else, but like I'm hoping that people will kind of connect with it for that reason. You know.
So, Cryptic Creeks is, for the audience, a Powered by the Apocalypse styled RPG. You're playing as River Scouts. Correct me if I'm wrong at this.
That's right.
And you're trying to communicate with ancient creatures and cryptids to lift curses.
That's right. So So the GM is going to be called the Navigator because it's quite boat themed the whole game. Even the
Yeah,
playbooks have boat themes, like kind of the roles on the ship.
yeah, it's
Um,
nautical.
yeah, and yeah, it's nautical. Yeah, exactly. So basically, the Navigator at the beginning of the game invents both a curse, so it could be anything, and a cryptid, which is like this kind of this main ancient guardian of this community. The sort of thing that's spoke about in folklore and like local, like
Yeah.
like old boys talk about in the diner and things.
Hmm.
Um, and basically, the group of teams have got to work together to appease or to like convince this cryptid by passing a number of trials that it needs to lift this curse. They got to almost bring it out of like sleep
Yeah.
or dormancy, and then they've
Hmm.
got to lift this curse. Otherwise, the curse will spread to the city.
I adore the concept. I love the inspirations for it. People familiar with Gravity Falls, Hilda, The Goonies, a little bit of Goosebumps in there too. I think you said
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just it's it's so it's right up the alley for me. I lived in I live in a very forested area of Ontario,
Hmm.
really close to national parks. I live right on Lake Ontario. Like I can go to the lake within 5 minutes. So just seeing this and
Nice.
like, oh yeah, it's that's I took a friend from Edinburgh to Lake Ontario, and he had a hard time wrapping his head around the fact that it wasn't like an ocean or a sea, that it was just a lake.
Yeah,
It
I
was
bet.
hilarious to watch. And yeah, it's just I'm really excited about Cryptid Creek. And can you tell us a little bit about like what playbooks look like? I know that you said that, like
Mhm.
maybe one or two of the ones that you're like, yeah, this is the one I really enjoy.
So one of the visual elements I'm really pleased about is like because they're scouts, they don't wear uniforms, but they wear these sashes which have got they've got like badges on them. Like scouts have badges, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
So they got these sashes, but each of these playbooks have a sash in a different kind of context. So some of them got as a hairband, some have got on their belt, some have got on as shoelaces, some have got
I'm seeing that on the art
on
right
like a
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly on their necktie and things like this. And that the playbooks visually are going to be awesome because you can have the character within their kind of like their themes or their like strengths, and then next to it, it's going to have that sash, but it's going to be illustrated as the way they wear it, basically.
Hmm.
Uh, and then that opens up for players when they create their scout to kind of have their own way of using the sash. Um, but the sash is not just visual. The sash is actually representative of special moves. So you have a thing called moves in Powered by the Apocalypse, and you have
Hmm.
basic moves where everyone shares this pool of kind of like actions, which are similar to skill checks in Dungeons and Dragons, and
Yeah.
then you have a special move which are called badges in Cryptic Creeks, which are the things that go on these sashes. And as your character progresses, the badges are earned and they go on the sash. So that's kind of the idea. And you've got things like like you've got like a medic type character on the boat, a first aider, and they've got all sorts of things like healing abilities and kind of like bolstering mental health and psychology. And
Yeah.
then, but also they've got like obviously an extended like inventory, but also there's the supernatural element to the game. So there's not only the huge cryptid, but there's like little mini ones that kind of guide you through the game, and they're like it's almost like Pokemon. And so all the playbooks that can have this tap into this supernatural element because one of the moves, basic moves, is called the cryptid move, which is kind of
Hmm.
like tapping into this other world. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, so the medic might have some extra, supernatural ability to heal.
It's one of my favorite things about Powered by the Apocalypse is the ease and the ability to tell stories. And I think even just looking at the art, hearing that little bit about it, and the basic setting, it's almost building itself for this that kids adventure film.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, 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 yeah.
it's so
100%.
so flushed out in like a very simple way. But if you've played Powered by the Apocalypse, I feel like you could just pick this up and go.
Yeah. So I wanted to because one of the big influences on it is Brindlewood Bay by I always forget.
Oh,
Um, I don't know why I've forgotten this. Um,
yeah, this is it's
Cordova.
by
Is it Jason Cordova?
I'm pulling it up right now. uh, oh, I got a book that is not the right one. That's the murder cozy murder
That's
one.
right. The Murder Maidens. The
Okay, yes.
yeah.
We'll find
I
it.
think it's
That sounds right.
yes. That sounds right. We'll go with that. But it's one of the big influences on the game is that system. In terms of how serialized it is, so it feels like episodes of a series.
Yeah.
And because of some of the influences of on Cryptic Creeks, like media influences, it's kind of it feels right for it to feel like a series of one shots or like chapters.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what we want to go for. But also simultaneously, we really want to produce it for the first time, like a really high quality podcast, the serialized actual play, with the soundtrack,
Yeah.
and like SFX afterwards in post production, like a
Jason
really good
Cordova.
quality one.
That's it.
Um,
Jason Cordova. I found
Jason, yeah, I thought I had it right. Yeah, sorry, Jason.
it.
um, and yeah, so I think that will be the first time we're doing the podcast type thing, but I think it would suit the kind of audio element really well.
I can agree to
Yeah.
that. I think that would be a lot of fun,
Mm.
especially if you're going into this with those inspirations as touchstones. I think that you can reach a lot of people. I obviously have a lot of friends and acquaintances in this space who are doing those
Hmm.
kinds of things. And I think that if you're doing an actual play like that or some sort of serialized podcast, like that would fit right into it. It just in such a smooth little way too.
I think so, and also it's almost like that would maybe open the doors to more in the future,
Hmm.
because I do like the idea of a kind of a series of one shots
Yeah.
as a game, as opposed to like a really intricate campaign,
Hmm.
or that kind of like episodic TV sort of like viewpoint. Um, yeah, with like the outro music and the intro and all these things, like the theme tune. I can picture it now. I'm really excited about that. I think that'd be really fun.
I think so too. Something that I wanted to make sure we touched on, and this is about Dragon Dowser again, is
Hmm.
actually a thing about you spreading out into the community, and that is the campaign setting with Bard RPG.
Mm.
How'd that come to be?
Well, I mean, Scriv the Bard is like my my long term collaborator on everything basically.
Yeah.
I do everything with them, pretty much.
Hmm.
If not directly, then behind the scenes, we're still in contact with each other about everything we do.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have any other way. They're amazing at what they do, and they're such a champion for family friendly space. And
Yeah.
they're co-designing Cryptic Creeks with me. Uh,
Oh, are they? I didn't know
Complete,
that.
yeah, oh yeah, completely co-designing it. Even to the point of doing it live on Twitch for a number of episodes.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's really unique to design something from scratch live. It's really fun, and getting the kind of viewer feedback as and when. Um, but yeah, so Bard RPG is something I've supported since the beginning, since they announced producing it and crowdfunding it, and I love the system. I think it leans really into like narrative storytelling, and it was genre agnostic. Sorry, it's system agnostic. So and genre agnostic. So I decided to if we made a certain amount of money from the Dragon Dowser Kickstarter, that I would start on expanding it into a complete campaign book. Like fleshing out the lore, the kind of making some GM options,
Hmm.
accommodating like up to 6 Dowsers, going into like ways of the spore storms, like certain elements of the game that haven't got enough lore to them. These giant sort of like magnetic or acidic storms,
Yeah.
and then all the sorts of things around dowsing crystals, a bit like lightsabers,
Hmm.
and then obviously the dragons, like and
Yeah,
rearing them in the sanctuary. So I'd love to flesh out all of that into one full campaign setting, but we need to hit a certain total on
yeah,
Kickstarter. I think we'll probably do it. I think I'm pretty confident. We still got 26 days left.
yeah. You got 26 days, and you're what, like
10,000
five?
already. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, on yeah, 10,041 quid. On my end, it's 16,000,
Oh,
so
nice.
almost 17. Well, Canadian, right? That
Yeah,
weak
yeah.
dollar.
We'll go with yours. We'll go with yours. But yeah, so if it hits 12, Willow's Quest will start on a new cover, and then we'll get going with that, and that'll be with Scriv the Bard as well. That'll be
Mhm.
fully co-designed as well.
I think what is great about that too is it gives you a chance to write more and fill out some detail on that stuff. But in the base game, Dragon Dowser, the solo journaling version, you don't need to fill that in because those things are intentionally kind of left up for players to figure out. And just,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, when you add more people, you kind of need to make things a little bit more solid. I've I've seen games that are a little too loose and games
Yeah,
that are a little too strict.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Um, but I'll tell you what will be fun as well. We're gonna do it like a dowsing jam in August. So we're gonna have
mhm,
everyone basically post all their dowsing journeys, their creative writing on itch.io, and then I can take those and look through them and see what elements I really like. 'Cause people are bound to come up with some amazing kind of concepts.
mhm,
I mean, some of the actual plays, the live plays that have done it already, and the reviews, they've come up with some really interesting kind of elements.
yeah,
Especially around like when you lose. There's a roll. There was a roll on a 7 and an 8, which are like positive and negative chaos rolls. So
okay.
normally you'd lose a set amount of resources or gain a set amount of resources, but these chaos rolls ask you to roll a d6. So one of the people, Dan from basically rolled a 6 and got a 1. So he only lost one resource. But then he creatively wrote about what happened to the other 5 resources, basically. And I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought that people would kind of fill in that gap. But it's just amazing how people interpret stuff.
Mhm. I wanted to just talk about you for a second because it's been, like we said, 2 years, and things have changed a lot in that time. I know that when we last talked, you were writing Inspirisles when you had the chance, when you could, when you were trying to fund it, and now you're really pushing for this to be kind of your full time gig. So, what's that been like, and seeing that come to fruition?
It's it's tough because I'm not a natural uh, numbers person or a business person at all, really.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I wouldn't say I was disorganized per se, but like I'm not really about crunching numbers and thinking about like
Yeah,
balances and like managing my finances that acutely.
I get
Um,
it.
uh, but um, but on the other hand, I've had to adapt to that if I want to have this lifestyle and this career and keep making these games. And so far, I've worked with some very good people, and I
Hmm.
trust them, and they always deliver, and they never leave me like hanging about anything really. And I've got an accountant for the first time, so that makes a difference because that takes some of the pressure off, huge amount of pressure off actually. Um, and It's enabling me to kind of make the stuff I wanted to. Like I would never have imagined that I'd ever be able to make stuff like Cryptic Creeks,
Yeah.
something that's so personal to me, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and a lot of people obviously do. A lot of creatives actually do have the opportunity, and it's reflecting really like a lot of projects with a lot of integrity. You see these amazing like Gravity Falls and things like this, and
Yeah.
these films that mean something to the directors and the artists. So yeah, I'm just I'm over the moon really that it is my full-time gig, and the fact that I can bring my wife on board as our principal writer is another amazing thing.
That's
And now
another
we've both,
question I had.
yeah, we're both working as Hatchlings Games, and she's absolutely delighted with it. She loves it. She's writing a novel on Dragon Dowser now.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
like
that's
she's
so
full on
exciting.
gone into it, and she wrote the whole of Dragon Dowser, all the prompts, all the
Hmm.
intro, everything is written by Catherine. And it's like I know she doesn't get enough credit because she's not the sort of face of Hatchlings Games. I do all the social media stuff because I'm an extrovert and she's an introvert essentially. Uh, but yeah, she's wildly talented, and I'm so happy that she's got a chance to kind of express herself through her writing.
How did that conversation kind of come up when you're like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Or was it just kind of sitting over dinner one day, or what did that look like?
Do you know what? I don't actually know. That's weird. That's a weird. That's a disarming question because it must have been like a natural thing that I just slipped in. I tend to do that anyway. Like I tend to talk to people. I tend to talk to people and go, "Oh, do you want to work for this, or do you want to do this for me?" Like I went to a summit on the weekend. I went to a summit on the weekend. This weekend past. It was with Dicebreaker, and it was in London, and it was a tabletop creator summit. It was really cool. I got to meet amazing people there, and
Hmm.
and I started talking to people, and we were doing like networking, a couple of hours of networking,
Yeah.
and people were coming around and saying, "Oh, this is what I make, and this, what do you do? What sort of games do you make?" And I
Hmm.
started talking to this chap, and I found out he was like an expert in ancient Greek culture and languages, right?
Oh.
So then I was like, oh, we've got like a sort of like a mixture of ancient Greece and space coming out in a couple of years. Argo Naught or Argo Zero, when you call it. And would you like to consult for us on that game? Absolutely nothing to do with role playing games, but it's turned out that like a secondary kind of like interest or skill can also be equally effective in what you're
Hmm.
doing because it's such a collaborative process, like making games. There's so many elements that go into it, so many different elements of like the creative arts that go into it, that you never know when you're going to stray across someone who you're making like a horse riding game or something, and someone's like an expert in like horse keeping or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just so that's probably what happened with Catherine. I was like, oh, why didn't you write for us? Because I already knew she was an amazing writer. I already knew she was an absolutely incredible writer, and she's prolific as well. She touch types. She's like um, she gets stuff done very quickly
Hmm.
in a couple of days. So it's a win-win for us really, and it's also in house then as well, of course.
Well,
So
it's in house, really. So
exactly in house, yeah. So yeah, that's probably the route. It's just like, why don't you do it? Why don't you just do it? Yeah, and the rest is history. That's my
that
line.
question came up because her description is got lured into Dungeons and Dragons by Rich. And I was like, there's got to be a story behind this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. Why don't you try this out? Why don't you try this out? Why don't you write for us? Why don't you become a full-time writer? Why don't you reach out to other people about third-party gigs? Yeah, I'm very enthusiastic about this industry and the potential to, in terms of like giving yourself a different avenue of like revenue and also
Mhm.
kind of creative output, and
Yeah.
expression.
I mean, rightfully so. A lot of people who've come onto this show, a lot of people who listen to this show, they're you're kind of living the dream that they wish they could be, right? So
Mm,
you got these creators and stuff, but I think what separates you is that you're making sure to use things that, and obviously everybody does this. I'm not accusing anybody who's listening to this of not, but you have a background with the deaf community, for instance, and that's how Inspire your start for Inspirisles started off as, how can I help this group interact with more people?
yeah, that's exactly it. That's it, precisely the thought process. Yes, exactly. I think a lot of your reasons for making games matters. I
Hmm.
think it matters a deeply actually, because I don't think you can sustain it unless the reason's good enough. Like, what's the kind of both the reason and also the core theme of a game is
Yeah.
important for me. Because you can't, these are not it's people that say anyone can write a novel. It's not true. Like, it's not true at all. Like, it takes so much graft to do it, and when you also bundling on crowdfunding and team management and kind of fulfillment, you've got a
Yeah.
whole a different collection of eggs to manage. So it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's not everyone, it's not for everyone. Not everyone can do it, but I think if you've got the right kind of attitude from the beginning, and you go through the right steps and you talk to the right people, I think that's actually key as well. Like, I've
Yeah.
never been afraid to reach out to people again, because maybe I'll advantage because I'm an extrovert, so I'm not afraid to just chat people's ears off. Um, but basically, yeah, I've always spoken to the right people, and they've always been willing to help me out. Um, and that's got me maybe further than I would have normally. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, I think it makes sense. You talked about fulfillment there, and there was another guest on the show recently, Salty. He is from the same area as me, and we were chatting not too long ago, and he was talking about fulfillment, and that was one thing he never took account for. And
Mm.
now he's like, I spend all day in my garage packing boxes. So
It is brutal. Like, and it will put different what's the word, different stages of game development will kind of put people off. I think
yeah.
you know, it's not just coming up with a concept and then putting your head down and writing it out. It's just there's so
Hmm.
many elements to it, and 80% of what I do is marketing and promotion. I'll be honest with you, it
Yeah.
is. And that might not be like direct marketing and promotion, but it's always like building a community,
Yeah.
uh, and that's essential to be successful in the industry, in the community. But also,
Hmm.
it's damn hard work, especially when you do it with integrity, and you support a lot of people at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just even, I know I don't post much in there, but like, even just seeing the community you've built with the Hatchling Games Discord, that alone kind of gives an outsider perspective on what Hatchling Games is about, because that community is phenomenal.
I
They're
love
so
it so
sweet.
much.
They're
I love
so
it so
so
much.
sweet.
There's never once been anything negative on there. Never once. Not
Exactly.
one time in 3 years have there been a single negative comment. It's people exploring things, people maybe like deep diving into the games and
Hmm.
questioning some mechanics. But that's not negative. That's a really constructive feedback.
Yeah.
And I just wish I knew how to engage with it or run it better.
Hmm.
Because I know Twitter for the back of my hand now. I know how it works. I know like how to like make and it sounds stupid, but making the word count right and hit the right
Yeah.
kind of like targets and all these things, hashtags and
Yeah.
when to post, all this stuff. I suppose the etiquette of Twitter I know well, but Discord still, I'm still like, I wish I could get more from that community. It's
Yeah.
lovely that they're there, but I wish I could have more engagement there. And I think that might naturally happen when other social media sort of like platforms kind of take a nosedive or become too problematic. I think I might just
Yeah.
shift over to there anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and engage more, because if I've got more time away from these like established platforms and go
Hmm.
to a more like focused community, I think that could be really really great.
Discord is such a strange one because it's so personal.
Mm.
It reminds me of the like chat boards and stuff like that from the early 2000s, and just
Hmm.
it has like
Yeah,
that same energy about it.
definitely.
Okay, so I also wanted to bring this up because you were excited to tell me a little bit about it. You mentioned already. Let's talk a little bit about Argonaut, what that is,
Yeah.
and when people might hear a little bit more about it.
Well, actually, that's the weirdest thing is because I got a couple of people on board. So I got uh, Kat, the law mistress, is co-designing that with me, and Alex Connolly, who's an artist who does a lot of science fiction, a lot of mecha. Um,
Okay.
these giant robots, ships, and really dynamic character designs. So I got them on board, and I introduced this project to them both. Kat's like a mythologist. She knows a lot about Greek history, Greek mythology,
Mhm.
and also, like a brilliant designer. And
Yeah.
so I introduced the kind of concept behind this game, which will be a retelling of Jason and the Argonauts, but in
Okay.
deep space. Um, so the principle is, instead of the golden fleece, you've got a golden moon, and you're crew of the crewmates of the Argo, and you have to travel through this asteroid belt. It's controlled by like junkers and kind of like
Mhm.
vagabonds,
Yeah.
and you have to make it to the moon and then harvest it and then return to your community and kind of save the outpost. Um, and we're going to have amazing things. We're going to have like the computer in the ship's going to be called Athena, which is like from the myth.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to relate to, and it also becomes a character in the game. It can kind of like manifest itself as this warrior.
Yeah.
And we've got like giant hydra with like lasers. We've got like a kraken that will smash through asteroids randomly. Um, and it's based on the Paragon system by uh, the people that did Aegon, which is like a Greek myth RPG, like a myth, like an RPG of like ancient mythology or epic
I'm not
tales.
familiar with it
Yeah,
um, personally.
they're published through Evil Hat Productions,
Oh, okay.
and Sean Nittner is one of the designers.
I think Chamber uses it. There's an SRD for it. I know that much.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's the Paragon SRD. It's called. So it's entirely based on that because it's just so perfect for like asteroid hopping, I suppose. Because in Aegon you go from like the Odyssey, you go from island to island in that, and you've got encounters with each one, and combat, and sort of like communing with the gods and
Mhm.
goddesses. And in R1 it's going to be like asteroids instead. So it's basically just swapping themes. Um, but I want it to feel like those 80s Saturday morning cartoons. Like I used to love like Ulysses 31 and Jason the Wheeled Warriors. They're
Yes.
my bread and butter when I was a kid. So I kind of want to evoke both of them so much in this game.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of the idea behind it. So it's going to have like like an 80s synthy kind of sci-fi vibe.
I love that. There was I saw a couple things this morning that harken back to those mid 80s to mid 90s kind of weird sci-fi TV shows like that
Yeah,
just kind of came out of nowhere. I remember there was one I cannot. It was called Dino Riders or something like that.
yeah, I
And
remember that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I had the toys. I had the Triceratops with like
yeah. I
really terrible like figures that went. They're so generic. They were so generic. They almost look like Lego pieces.
it's so of its time too, though. Like, let's just strap some lasers onto a T Rex
Yeah,
and go.
yeah. But we're missing a little bit of that. We're missing a little bit of that kind of like what's the word? Unpretentiousness, I guess.
Yeah, it it knew what it was, and it didn't try and be anything else. It just
It was just
went was
dinos with
its
lasers.
exactly. That was the entire concept, and the bad guys were big lizards or frogs or something like that. I just
Yeah, I mean, even
yes.
Transformers, man. Transformers is just vehicles with a robot. I
Yep.
mean, it's just like so basic. Like, why the hell would a Ferrari be on Mars? It makes absolutely no sense.
It's yeah, I miss it. It's what was the other one? Biker Mice from Mars. That's the one that
Yeah,
comes up
yeah,
all the
yeah,
time
yeah,
too.
yeah. That's brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, so I would love to, evoke some of that with Argonaut,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm hoping we can do that. I mean, certainly Alex's work so far has been spot on. Like, absolutely understands it. Again, another artist that kind of understands the vision perfectly. But what I was going to say was, when can we expect that? It's actually being produced quicker than Cryptic Creeks at this point. So it's like the
Really?
system's nearly done, and then I can't stop Alex from working on it. I'm like saying, like, I'm not, I haven't got the money yet to pay you for all this. Just slow down, slow down. He's like, no, I want to do it. I
Just
want to do
very
it.
excited about it.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
very excited. Yeah, bless, it's brilliant.
Oh, that's great.
funny.
Rich, we're starting to run low on time, though.
Hmm.
So I think we should probably start wrapping it up. Before we go off, because this is one of the last few things, though, do you happen to know offhand the last day for people to back Dragon Dowser on Kickstarter?
We launched on the 23rd of May, so probably 22nd of June.
Okay.
Yeah. So just at least, well, we've got a long time yet.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there's still some time. I think that, like I said, there'll be about 2 weeks after this episode goes live.
yeah. We might have a nice little YouTube video coming out that'll help us boost us on the 10th of June. I won't say more about that, but that'll be nice. Nice little bonus.
Look forward to that then, folks. I have a question for you because you've been on the show before. I asked for you to give some advice on how to get people started with their projects, but something that I think is really important. We've talked a little bit about mental health and stuff before, but what advice can you give folks to help from burning out on projects?
I mean, my answer would have been different like 2 years ago, but like my answer now is to stay off social media, basically. just
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fair.
literally, Twitter, especially, it can become overwhelming.
So draining sometimes.
And you just have to take a break. I mean, well, I go to Wales once a week, and I post about it on Twitter, ironically. But but that's it. I do a post in the morning. I say I'm off to Wales on an adventure. I'll see you later. I look at my phone all day, and it's lovely. I spend time with my best friend and her daughter, and it's just a complete mental health break. And then sometimes I go away for a week with no Twitter or anything like that. That is the number one thing I would say is your social media activity. And second, please just reach out to people if you're struggling, especially your peers, because they all 100% all have been through the same thing or are going through the same thing. It's a struggle for me a lot, and thankfully I have Catherine here to ground me and kind of like give me perspective. But not a lot of people do. Not a lot of people have a partner or someone close by. So don't go alone on this. It's meant to be a collaborative process, and see that as the whole community rather than just your team that you work with. I'm friends with all my team. People I work with, I make friends with all of them. Because I don't see it as a separate thing. And it's probably not that professional, but I'm buddies with everyone really, and it makes for a much better working environment. I found
exactly. I think one of the hardest things for folks and bad for me too. Like I get it, but it's really hard to accept that people care about you. Sometimes it can be very difficult to accept that when you're feeling down, and B, that you aren't burdening them. That's the hard part.
It is difficult. That is really difficult. It's funny. Like I found every time when I felt really low, I have just reached out on Twitter on that one occasion, and it's just been absolute outpouring. And that's the moment where everyone you've built a relationship with comes out of the, behind the scenes, and just really helps you out.
Yeah.
So there's avenues all the time, really, but it is difficult. You don't want to burden people. You're right. In which case, try and take some time to yourself, away from the sort of the busyness and the sort of humdrum of social media. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, social media breaks. Highly recommend them. I probably do it a little too frequently, but it's Twitter is up and down, but it can still be incredibly difficult. It's the word I'm going to use.
Yeah. It's getting harder and harder as well. Way harder.
Yeah.
And that's why it's lovely that we touched on the Discord, because I feel the same way you do. I feel like just generally as a platform, it's wonderful. I have no negative comments about it at all at this point.
A little bit easier to control it.
Yeah.
Rich, where can people find out more about you, Hatchling Games, and specifically right now, Dragon Dowser?
So you can find all about us, our community work, and our games at www.hatchlingsgames.co.uk. Dragon Dowser's on Kickstarter now. Just search Dragon Dowser. It's the only thing that'll come up. We're over 300% funded, which is brilliant, obviously.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's a wonderful. It means we can essentially move towards this bigger campaign setting, which would be so much fun. And also I'm most active on Twitter, and you can join a Discord if you ask for a link. And there's nearly 650 people on there at this point, so that's quite vibrant and a lot of engagement.
And they're amazing. And they are amazing there.
Great people.
I'll say it. Yeah. As always, audience, those links are going to be down in the description below. Rich, thanks so much for coming back. This was great. I love touching base with you and talking about Hatchlings Games. I'm so excited for Cryptic Creek and the other stuff that's coming out in the future, because you got something special here, and I'm excited to see it grow.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. Lovely to meet
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure. Feel free to reach out whenever you want. Audience, thank you so much for joining us. Dragon Dowser is currently funding, and it is scheduled to launch really soon. Go check it out. Go support Rich and Hatchlings Games. Until next time, though, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you so much to Rich for joining me on the show this week. It was amazing just being able to catch up and learn so much about all these different projects. Dragon Dowser's funding ends on June 22nd, so if it's something that's up your alley, please go and support this wonderful group of people. I'll also be letting you know when Argonaut and Cryptic Creek go live somewhere on the internet. And thank you all for listening. We had a super good week and got so many new people here, so just wanted to take a moment to say an especially big thank you to the mass amount of new folks who joined us. Hey all, if you're listening to this, thanks for coming back. If you like what you heard and you want to support the show, please consider leaving a review and telling a friend, as that's the only way we grow around here. That's all from me though, so I hope to see you somewhere out there. Take care of yourselves. Bye.